So, Tiffany, I want to ask you about a post that you made in March of this year, because I think it relates a lot to business.
Okay.
Running a law firm, it is a lot like this. You wrote it; it was a personal message, but I want to ask you about it.
Okay.
Sometimes I catch myself wanting a minute alone, just alone, only to find the beginning of heartbreak in the solitude. Talk about that.
hmm I wrote that adjusting to being a parent. My daughter's two. So I just remember so many nights of just being like, I just need a minute. Just give me 1 minute. And then the second she's asleep, I'm attached to the monitor watching her sleep. Like I just want to be with her. So that's kind of where my head was at. Like I didn't realize just how much my life would be wrapped up in this. To the point where like I don't even want a minute away from her, even when I think I do.
I wonder, have there ever been, because there's times where I've been like, maybe it would just make sense to just sell the firm and I can spend time with family, you know?
hmm
And have you ever had moments like that?
Um, let's see, maybe on the drive here this morning. And it's kind of like what my hot seat topic is about, of like this kind of dichotomy of I just want to get away from it all, but also like this desperate desire to continue making it better because you know you can, which is kind of hard to reconcile a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that because you're right. And I think we probably all have that feeling where like I want to keep building this thing, but I want to get away from this thing. And it's not that you really want to be away from it, but
hmm
it's there's so many
I need a
stressors.
break.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, what are some of those things that just because we know the desire to kind of build, but like
hmm
the part like that pulls like what is that? Where does that come from? Like, what's the source of
hmm
that?
For me, I think it's the constantly being needed, which is a lot like being a parent, is that you're always needed 100% of the time. And the pressure to not let people down too. You know, and everybody's looking at you for the answers and they're not looking at anyone else for the answers. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it just kind of and it never seems to stop.
No,
Yeah,
no.
I have you ever tried to like put things in place that would help prevent that, I guess?
I have, but I'm not super successful at it. And my organization is pretty small. I mean, you have a large organization, so I mean, have you felt that same way?
I mean, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's one of those things where it gets. I've had these conversations with Amy where it just it's like a constant thing. Like I feel like I've always got something piling up,
Yeah.
you know, and I
hmm
think that is where it's if I felt like we were always on top of every single thing, which is impossible, but if I felt like if we were on top of all those things,
hmm
then I wouldn't have the stress. But it's like things piling up, but then a million questions from all the people.
Yes, all the time, like a revolving door.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to have kind of like an open door policy to an extent, but that open door has become a revolving door. Like, when do I get to work on the things? You know, like I want to pour into my people and make sure that they understand their jobs and that they feel empowered and like they have all the tools they need to succeed, but I don't want to be the only tool they have.
yeah.
So how do you get over that, or what do you do next? Is really kind of where that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, do you set aside time to quote unquote work on things?
I do, um, but it actually working out, or the time being honored by the people that I work with, not always the best.
All right, well, that's a problem.
Yes,
So the why is that happening?
because of me, and that's one of the things that, like, when I reflect, I'm like, I set this up. You know, that people wouldn't just barge in my office and talk to me if I didn't tell them to say, not right now, I'm working on something. You know, I completely enable it and just let the door be wide open and they come on in and I answer what they need and then they do it again.
Yeah, there's that concept of where like if you're not checking it, and it's and I don't know the exact quote, but like you know you basically you need to be checking in on your employees, make sure that they're doing everything they're supposed to, and if you're not, then they're not going to think it's important, so then they won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's similar to like whenever we put rules in place, and you know people are supposed to follow them, but then if we don't follow them,
Mm-hmm.
no one will follow them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that like a common trend?
Um, it is in my firm. It is with respect to like me. or giving myself time to do it. I want or time to work. I mean, like I feel like our team is like really respectful of each other's time, but I have not put any sort of boundaries in place to protect my own. So I'm kind of just like the it's you take the idea of wanting to be kind of like a servant leader of like not wanting to be like high up in a tower and want to be available to people and then just take it to the extreme. That's kind of where
So Ashley Smith and I, we were talking yesterday about this, and we were talking about the line. There's like a line, right,
hmm
between you and your employees, and it can get blurred. And when it gets blurred, it's kind of a bad thing.
hmm
How much of that line is maybe blurred?
Probably a lot, especially given how I came up in the firm, beginning as like a young associate and then becoming partner and then partner dying and then me just being me. They went from being a coworker with me to me being their boss in a relatively short amount of time. And I don't want to take it off track of your thought, but this makes me think of I only recently read that Harvard Business Review article, The Where is the Monkey?
Yes.
And I put the sticky note on my monitor because I'm like, I need this all the time because I'm the one with all the monkeys in the room. And because I just want to, it's like the desire to help. But you can only help so much. Like I've hired people that are good at their jobs and I want them to go and do that job well. And then I just keep taking work off their plate.
The problem with that article is it will ruin you because you read it and you realize all of the monkeys are on your back,
hmm
and you're like, it's it is. I have to remind myself many times about that article, but it is that's the thing with that article.
hmm
Like you realize, oh my gosh, it's right. And a big part of it is, and I think there's a difference between putting the monkey on someone's back and then also buck passing.
hmm
There's the buck passing part of it too. Luckily, we don't have a whole lot of. I've had that in the past with employees where like they're very busy,
hmm
but they're really just pushing things on other people's
Yep.
plates. I mean, how much of that do you experience?
We've had that before, but they don't make it very long with us. Some people have like skated under the radar, but for the most part, it's people coming with a question that they have every intent of resolving once they have my guidance or input. But then I say, I'll do it, or I'll take a task or a part of that so that they can't act until I've done something. When really they just needed a couple sentences with next steps, and then they go forth and do.
Those are the absolute best employees. You can you just hey, here's what I need.
hmm
This is the result, and they go do it. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty good. I want to go back. So when you started with that firm, and I did look at it, I don't remember the name of it, but it had Thomas in it, but it did
hmm
not. It had two other names.
hmm
So when you joined, what happened? Or I mean, they didn't leave because you joined, but you joined as a was it an associate? Okay,
Yeah,
so you didn't join in law school. You joined actually after law school.
right.
All right. What was the firm dynamic like then, and who are these other two partners? I'd never
Yeah.
heard of that until I was doing some research.
Yeah. So the firm's called Thomas Godley and Grimes. I came in to work as a litigation associate for the Grimes portion. And the firm did a little bit of everything: real estate, family law, litigation, estate planning, no criminal, but kind of like the general stuff that you would need at a general practice in a smaller town in the South. So started doing litigation, and the dynamic was really kind of the guy that I worked for, his wife, personal injury attorney, at a kind of popular personal injury firm here in Charlotte. She wanted out. She wanted to move away and come join us. So the guy that I worked for was really pushing for that. And ultimately, the outcome of that was that we decided rather than bringing in more practice areas, we were going to go the opposite way and just focus on our own. And, it was all amicable, but it was a little bit difficult to undo after kind of the tenure of those partners, or at least two of the three partners in the community.
Yeah, I've wondered about that before, with practice area with firms that have multiple practice areas like that.
hmm
Because to me, it seems like a bunch of like extension cords going to a bunch of different outlets,
hmm
and it's one of those things where like if you go, you don't really know necessarily because the cords are not marked. Like how do you unplug each one, and where does each one go? So that's what I visualize. Is
hmm
that what it's
It
like?
was exactly like that.
Yeah.
Even just down to like the software that you use, because in real estate, you have to have a certain type of software that only does real estate. So then you're looking at multiple practice management softwares and having to look a bunch of different places for conflicts checks. And really, like the deciding factor for it was that we were doing well in real estate, which we were of course happy about, but we were conflicting out so many family law cases. So, we've done like 4 or 5 real estate closings for a couple and then they want to get divorced. Now you can't represent either one of those in a family law case.
Wow.
So it's like, man, if we're doing well, but it's hurting team members, something's not working right here. Like this maybe isn't the best way for us to set this up.
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's got to be a massive problem with general practice firms.
I mean, I think so. This is the only one I've ever been part of, so I can't necessarily speak for the others, but it was really a big problem for us.
So, as an intern or anything, did you work for another firm?
No, I worked full time during law school at Electrolux, which is here in Charlotte. I guess I should mention that's where we're sitting when we're recording. People probably can figure that out. So I worked in the corporate world, and I thought I was going to stay there after graduation. But then a merger we were working on got nixed by the DOJ, so I
Oh
had to look
no.
elsewhere. Yeah.
All right. Those are drastically different positions, right? You're
Mhm.
going from that corporate world over to, which is like, was it in-house counsel, I guess?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the plan. Yeah.
Yeah. So to a small firm,
Yes.
different lifestyles completely. What what drew you to that firm?
Um, well, I don't know that it was necessarily specifically the firm. It was a job in a law firm that I was after. And I did not go working full time um, and living in Charlotte at the time. That really the only way to do that was to go to Charlotte School of Law. And it doesn't exist anymore. So, as you can imagine, the reputation for students from Charlotte School of Law was not great. Never mind you that I didn't have to go there. It was the best thing for my family at the time.
Right.
So you can't be like, well, if I would have moved on time, I would have just, taken the spot at Chapel Hill or I would have just gone to Wake Forest, but it didn't work out for my family. So the job prospects were honestly not very good. I remember meeting with, there's a partner at a big law firm in Charlotte who um, had known my mother-in-law and said, "Yeah, I'll meet with Tiffany. I'll talk to her." And he told me that the best I could hope for because of where I graduated law school was to do document review my whole career. And that pissed me off. And I said, "Okay, I'm going to show you." So really it was just to get I wasn't so much attracted to the firm. It was, okay, this is my leaping point. We'll see what happens there. And if I have to make a move in a couple years, great. But I didn't necessarily have it in my sights that, like, I'm going to end up owning this firm or I want to become partner at this firm. I wish it was a little more romantic than that, but it's not.
There's a couple places I want to go with this. I want to let's go back for a second because the job market. So you graduated in 2016, is that right?
I graduated December 2015
2015.
and then February 2016 bar.
Okay, so you became a lawyer, I guess in 2017.
March 2016, I guess.
Okay, March
Yeah.
2016. My math was off a little bit, but so the market was not good at the time. It was I remember that. So 2017 is whenever I started law school, and I do remember like all they talked about was how bad the market
Hmm.
was. I wonder how that's guided your decision making.
Hmm. Um, I think maybe I've always been a little bit too optimistic. um, so I'm not sure that it did. Maybe it should have, but I've always kind of had the bet on myself mentality, like I'll make something happen. So it didn't really. Uh,
Interesting. So you learned no lessons from that. Then
no.
that's, there's nothing wrong with that. So sometimes we do that, especially when you're. I mean, you're at that time in your career, right? You think you're going to work in the corporate world. You're
Mhm.
not going to be running your own firm. So your mindset is not, okay, this is what I would do if I were running a company. Like it's just
Mhm.
not, it's a different mindset. And you end up joining this firm. And my question I wanted to ask you was like, why'd you stay there?
Um, Stubbornness a little bit. So my husband has been an entrepreneur since like the day we met, really. So he was running his own business. It was a gym, and like naturally at the dinner table, we're talking about ways to make the gym better. I was a marketing major, so I had a little bit of the bug. And just seeing how few systems the firm had in place, how much opportunity there was, I saw it as an opportunity for myself of, okay, I can come in and if they're open to my ideas, I know that I can make some things happen. I know I could grow our market share in real estate, or I know I could help estate planning become more efficient. And it was just kind of like sheer force of will of like, I'm just going to keep trying until they listen. And if they never do, then I'll move on. But they did. So then I kind of got some momentum and was like, all right, I'm making a change here. I'm making this business a little bit better. Let me learn some more and just see how much further I could take it.
Where does that come from? I understand that feeling. It's almost like cleaning house in a way, where like you
Kind
you
of.
see this mess, you're like, I gotta clean that up, kind of
Hmm.
thing. I guess where does that desire though to kind of fix things and make it better? Where's that come from?
Mm, it's a great question. Maybe oldest child syndrome of like, wanting to take care of things. And I don't know, I guess I've also always been like really like pattern and detail oriented and like wanting things to make sense, be orderly, and when they're not, it's almost like a compulsion of like, how do I make this orderly?
Yeah.
Uh, so I guess maybe that's it.
How does that affect your leadership now?
Mm. Um, well, sometimes you have to take a step back from the systems a little bit and look at the people, which I am only really maybe the last year and a half, 2 years learning to do. And I, like I mentioned earlier, like the sheer force of will, just trying to make things fit, even when maybe they don't. Sometimes that means like parting ways with people that you really adore and maybe have been with the business a long time. But when you look at like the growth of the organization and what you have to do to serve your clients well, maybe they don't fit in that. Um, or sometimes you maybe have overlooked someone that you assumed wasn't a good fit, but they actually work perfectly within a system that serves your clients well. So I don't have that figured out, but it's something I've been learning recently.
I'm curious where why because I'm very similar to that. Like my focus was okay, client experience number one,
Hmm.
right? And then to do that, it's systems, right? And
Hmm.
so that was like where all that came from. And for the longest time, I was ignoring the employees.
Hmm.
I mean, not completely ignoring them, but like how important they were to everything.
Yeah.
And like I've learned they are everything, right?
Yes.
It's the systems are fantastic. It's great, but it's the actual employees are the most important part.
Hmm.
So I wonder what led you to that conclusion.
Um, it unfortunately was seeing that the like again people that I adored were really not doing the best job for our clients. That I liked being around them. I thought they were awesome, but when you look at their skill set and their track record of like not meeting certain expectations, it just wasn't going to work. So it was kind of the heartbreak side of that of knowing that gosh, I really like all these people personally, but they just can't get the job done the way that we want to do it for our clients. But there's also wiggle room in there that you've got people that maybe don't perfectly fit the system, but they're just a wizard on the phone, or like they're excellent at making people feel heard, or just making them feel like they had the best real estate closing experience on earth. So you got to give them a little bit of room to do that. I mean, like there's some magic involved as well if you let it happen.
Yeah, the people replacing I wouldn't call them the bad people, the people that are not
The
a good fit, the
underperformers, yeah.
underperformers with good people is really, really important. Did these people self-select out, or did you have to make the tough call?
Had to make the tough call. And the worst of it, I would say, was at the beginning of this year. So it's been an interesting year. We did some, refill or filling of those positions, and those people didn't work. Some of those people didn't work out. So I've been trying to, been listening to the Max Ball podcast since 2016, maybe early 2017. And how many times have you guys said, hire slow, fire fast? And I'm only just now learning the fire fast part,
It's
like,
hard.
yeah, like some of the people that we let go at the beginning of this year have been 6, 7 years. And this could have been done 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But, I feel like the cycle time of getting the replacements out that didn't work out was much shorter, and we're going to be better for it. But gosh, it's hard.
I'm gonna put you in that moment of just the moments right before you're gonna terminate the person.
Mhm.
Are they sitting in the conference room? Where are they?
In the conference room,
Okay,
yeah.
so you are so you're in your office. You are getting ready to go into there in there and have your conversation with
Mhm.
them. what's going through your mind in those moments just before you walk in?
Aside from get your heart rate down, um, it's the reminding myself that if I don't make this decision, if I don't go through with it, then the rest of the people working there that have been picking up the slack will continue suffering because they already have been by this person being there. And that it's also for the good of my family too. Not to be like dramatic or anything, but paying people who aren't performing is kind of throwing away money that could be used to build my daughter's college fund or like build a savings for my family, or reward other employees who are crushing it. And instead, that money is going to somebody who's not performing. Uh, and it's also like, okay, well, this person is not a good fit here. We're also denying them the chance to go work somewhere that they really like will find their thing because they will find their thing. It just doesn't have to be here.
Completely. Did the employees see it coming? The one you have in mind. I'm sure you probably had one in mind. At least whenever I think of, I was thinking like one person, But like, did they see it coming?
Yes, but a little bit in denial.
What do you
Um,
mean?
in the sense that I think they'd seen it coming for 3 or 4 months, and they had been asking their manager questions, like to suggest that they knew that maybe something was up. But then in the room, they acted like, "How could this be? How could you do this to me? What do you mean? I thought I was so great," despite like performance conversations. So that's not really the time to like rehash everything that you've already told them about how they've been doing. So it's kind of tough in the room to be like, okay, I'm not engaging in this conversation, but like this is
That's a
it.
tough part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said something that is really, really important that will help you with that. It'll be overlooked, and I want to highlight it. The breathing.
Mm,
Getting the breathing down is a really, really important because your heart rate starts to go up.
hmm
You start to you really are not controlling your breathing, but like taking those deep breaths
Yeah.
and really kind of lowering your stress is really, really important.
Yeah. Do you do that when you're about to fly?
And now
Or
I don't get stressed when I
you don't get
fly,
stressed?
but if on any stressful moment, like that if I'm arguing a big
Mm,
moment, if I'm having to have a difficult conversation with somebody, things like
yeah.
that, I will go through a breathing technique that will help bring that stress down. I'll usually do box breathing of some sort
hmm
that allows me to do it. But yeah, that's a significant part of it
Yeah.
where because if you don't do that, you're not gonna be thinking clearly.
No.
And
Got the shaky voice, and then you're thinking about your shaky voice, and it just.
yes, this is something is important for people that have never been through this. You'll start to have the shaky voice,
Mhm,
and then you're like, fuck, I'm supposed to be strong in this
mhm.
moment, and I'm sounding weak in this
Yep.
moment.
They're
And
gonna think I'll change my mind because I don't sound
yes,
convinced.
and the voice is wavering, so they're wavering a little bit.
hmm
That is such an important part.
Yeah.
Just to understand that that's what's going to happen in the moment.
hmm
All right, let's go back for a second. What would it take to convince you to sell your firm, other than money? So you
Other
can't.
than money.
So the number's right. Okay, so
Okay.
it's the right number, but other than money.
I think there are some like personal goals that I will have wanted to meet. Like we're about to open our third office. I've got like some market share in mind that I feel like would, it's not excessive, but it would feel really meaningful to do. Um, but I think also I'd have to mentally be in a spot where I'd be ready to try something new because I don't think if I were to sell the firm, I think I'd be done with law. Um,
So you would step
I
out.
wouldn't go work for someone else. So I would either have to be ready to tackle like a new practice area, or move to another state. Like there'd have to be some big catalyst, like be done with law, totally switch practice areas, move to a different state, move to a different country, something like that. But if I'm staying in my town, then it's probably me being like, okay, I'm ready to try to go like teach a business law class at a college or something. Um,
Would that interest you?
I like teaching. I like helping people understand. Like in in our practice areas, they lend themselves very well to like educating. So like the whole closing process is like a mini seminar, and I really like that. That's the thing that makes me most excited to do the job. So I think if I were to stop practicing law, I'd have to like go into some sort of. I'm I would think higher education probably, but probably something like that. Or if the YouTube thing continues, I'd never want to consider that as like a real possibility, but being confronted with the fact that it might be.
I want to ask you about the videos. So let's get into that because your videos are fantastic.
Thank
They
you.
are really really good
I
videos.
can't take all the credit. I've got to give my husband the credit for that, but
Well,
I do have to talk.
you're an essential part of it. You're the one that's talking, and you're the one that's on camera. But I can see where you're talking about. You were like you would be a fantastic teacher because you explain it. It's like such simple terms,
Mm,
and it's like I was watching them, and I just kind of get sucked into them because like you do such a really good job on them
it's the
explaining things.
algorithm.
Well, you just do an awesome job doing it, and like I followed you so I could figure out how you do things because
Mm,
it's such a cool way of
thank
doing
you.
it. What what got you into doing those?
Well, we started because we were getting so many of the same question. It was really just kind of like save our sanity a little bit of, when you get asked what is the due diligence fee for your, 900th time, you're like, if we just had a video on this, that anytime someone in our firm got this question, they could just send the video, it's going to save a lot of people a lot of time. So we just started doing frequently asked questions. And then from there, people started noticing them and saying, "Oh, that was really helpful. I used it when I was teaching my, like they're a broker in charge, and they taught their agents with that." So we realized it was actually helping some people, and so we continued to do it. And it took a long time before we put dollars behind it, but eventually we did. Um, and we will take turns doing that or not doing that. But it was really just out of necessity to save ourselves some emails and phone calls.
Was the firm doing the videos before?
No.
No. So you like this was something new to the firm
Mhm.
entitled.
And
Uh,
they came kicking and screaming.
what,
Did not want to do it.
so they were completely against it.
Hmm.
What convinced them?
Um, my husband really, he had just sold his gym and made a tidy profit on it, and he had grown it through video, among other things. But one of the biggest things was video, and they because they knew about the transaction, they're like, how did he grow it from this like little tiny gym to nothing huge, but enough to make it so that he didn't have to work for a couple of years if he didn't want to. So they started talking to him about his strategies, and they're like, well, what do you think you could do for us that didn't involve a camera? And he's like, probably a lot of things, but you asked about what best for me, and this was it. Like, but we're lawyers, we can't do that. We're different. The same thing that you've heard a million
Completely.
times. And he's like, well, what if you're not different? Like, what if you just committed to 8 months of this, and we just see what happens. And if at the end of 8 months you're not satisfied, just don't ever do it
Was
again.
it really 8 months?
Yeah.
Why did you pick 8 months?
Because he felt like by 6 months they'd start to see some momentum, and then they wouldn't want to stop.
Gotcha.
He was
Okay.
right. But they did not want to do it. Really, the main thing, they're like, well, what are the other lawyers going to say? I'm like, well, good thing the other lawyers are not our clients.
Yeah. No. Okay. So I asked. So it's interesting you said it because I asked Paul Yokovitis about haters, and those are just haters, right? Like
Mhm.
just that's what they are. So what are what I wonder what their mindset was on that and what your mindset is. Clearly
Mhm.
they're afraid of the haters. They were afraid of the
Yeah.
haters. I don't know if you were, but what at the time that you wanted to do these
Mhm.
videos and your husband wanted to do the videos, and I don't know, maybe you didn't want to at the time, but I guess what was your
Mhm.
view? What were you afraid of people, what they were going to say?
A little bit, yeah. And I didn't necessarily want to do the videos. I wanted to grow the business, and I wanted to show that something new could help the business rather than only doing things the old way. Like, let's do a mix of both. So the videos were just like, okay, this is one of the tests. We'll try this, and if it works, awesome. But yeah, I was a little bit afraid, just because it was something I'd never done before. I'm like, I don't want to look stupid. What if I say something wrong? Well, the great thing about a camera is that if you say something wrong, you just pause or start over or cut it out. Like, it's really not that deep.
What was the plan? Was the plan for you to be in the videos from the beginning, or were you going to have the other attorneys too?
The plan was not for me to do it in the beginning. At first, it was only the partners. And the guy, my law partner that passed away, he was probably the best on camera, but he was not excited about it. He was one of the main ones that was like, I've done all of my business through going to the chamber meetings and, you know, networking events. Like, awesome, you don't have to stop doing that. This is just another thing we're trying. And he really didn't want to do it, but he was the best. So the other partners were like, oh, you're actually kind of good at this. So then he got all, pumped up. And he's like, okay, I'll keep going. But the other two really struggled. I mean, they really struggled. And like the guy that I came into work for, awesome litigator, but he thought every video had to be uh, like a movie montage. He had a background and like he was a producer on a movie once, and it just everything had to be a movie montage. It was just like that's not really what we're doing here. So,
What does it take to be good in the videos that are required for us? Because it
mhm,
is different. It's not a movie,
yeah.
but what is it that's required?
I think it's a not even an expert level on your subject matter, but an ability to break down what could be a difficult concept very simply. Um, and that's about it. And being willing to press record. I don't think it's overly complicated.
Sure.
Um, I mean, I guess if you want to like make video your whole thing, you have to have some charisma and, not be afraid to stumble. But really, at the very basic level, I think it's just being able to simply break down concepts and being willing to show up and do it.
And that's like the baseline. The yours are very expertly done, and so I want to ask you about that too. What does it take to produce those high quality videos that you produce? Because they're really good.
Um, well, the equipment does matter. You don't have to have fancy equipment to start, but if you want to have something like more like what we do, then you have to have a little bit better equipment. You have to have someone that knows how to use it. Someone that like when it comes to editing knows how to color grade, knows how to make the audio just right, knows how to employ graphics tastefully, so not being constantly graphics, but also having right visual aids. So like my husband is kind of a jack of all trades in that sense because he loves learning about it. But it's kind of rare to find that all in one person that you also get a deep family discount on. So it's not cheap. We have other team members that work on it, and so it's really not just like a one man show. Um, so I think it takes the equipment, the knowledge of the right people, and usually knowing that that's not only one person. Like a lot of times the person that's like really good at filming is not necessarily also really good at editing an educational style video. So knowing that it's not a one size fits all.
Would you recommend that a firm hire someone and then have them get them trained in that, like to learn all those things, like your husband?
Um, if you have the if this is going to be like a core pillar of growing your business and you have the resources, or you are able to make the resources, yes. Um, but I wouldn't say to start. That's only after you've like started doing some work. I think it would be really hard to bring someone in to start from scratch that really doesn't already have all of that skill set. But if you've been doing video for a little bit already and you have some examples of things that that you like that worked really well, then you can like train to that.
I wonder what your thoughts are. There's I'm not going to say bad about anything bad about the company. They're a highly successful company. They produce very high quality videos for attorneys. They're the montages,
Hmm.
they put them on
And
the
that's who
website.
my boss at the time, I know exactly who you're
Yeah,
gonna
so
say.
they I guess he wanted to hire them.
Mhm.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, this is gonna. I know the answer to the question then, but I wonder what your thoughts are on those. And is there a place for those videos?
I think there is a place for those videos, but it's not the place that like a lot of the ways that people find their attorney is by getting on Google. And YouTube being part of Google and being like so highly, ranked for search results, they're not necessarily Googling like the commercial style video. There's probably not going to be a lot of keywords that would come out of that to talk about how awesome you are and like kind of beating your chest of, all of the testimonials. Like they're not really Googling real estate lawyer client testimonial. They're Googling what happens in a real estate closing. So I think if you've got like if you have an ad spot that's going to air on television or some other context where you're going to have like just a ton of eyeballs on your video at once, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I don't think it makes sense for like the day to day, just like going hard after your marketing type stuff.
Right. it's successful. Those companies are successful because it they they go and they kind of stroke your
It's
ego,
definitely
right?
vanity. Yeah.
It's a lot of vanity. There's a lot of I mean, a lot of trial lawyers that have them.
Hmm.
It's one of those things where it's an ego play,
Yeah.
and to me, ego plays don't aren't very successful when it comes to marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's, I mean, there's a lot of examples of that. You know,
Hmm.
billboards. There are ways of using billboards, but it's interesting to me that the the focus is no longer on the client;
Hmm.
it's on the attorney, which is ass backwards compared
Yeah.
to every other industry.
Yeah. I mean, I think if somebody's watching a video, it's because they want to know what is it going to feel like to work with that person? How am I going to feel? What will happen to me? Not, oh, you think you're the best trial lawyer in the state, or, you've had this other person got a great verdict. That's great for them, but what's going to happen to me? So if our content and the way we're speaking to the clients isn't helping them understand their own journey, I'm not sure that I want to spend time and effort making that.
Yeah, if you look at any of the best marketing in the world, it's how does it make that person feel?
Hmm.
And if they just see this, oh, you look fantastic, that's
Hmm.
great.
Really nice slow mo.
Yeah, it looks really, you look great, but it doesn't move them to do anything.
Hmm.
And I'm not even sure there's calls to action there, which
Yeah.
is like, then what's the point of it?
Do you have one of those?
I do not have one of
Mhm.
those. As
You
you can
don't
tell, I
strike
don't
me
have.
as like, I mean, I could see maybe like 8 years ago you being like, well, let's see, but you don't strike me as an attorney that would have one of those.
I take that back. I might have one, and if I do, it was one that Kent put together for free of me flying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if he ever created one. Amy's
Never
give me
seen
that. I don't know. But if it does exist, if he did create it, it's never been put out there. So
Yeah.
so I might have one, but I've never used it or
Yeah.
anything. All right, I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna shift gears.
Okay.
You recorded a video. It's also a very good video. It's also a very sad video and a powerful video. And it was a message after Ben died. And Ben is, for people that don't know, is your former partner. What was going through your mind as you prepared for that video and as you were actually recording that video?
Um, well, I was a little bit, I'm struggling to think of the right word, but I was reluctant to do it, but I was also a little bit bitter about it. I did it out of necessity, um, because immediately people started circling saying, "Is the firm for sale? Are you guys going to shut down?" Like, rather than, like, there were so few attorneys in our area, and the ones that did, like, I will kind of remember for the rest of my life, that reached out and said, "How can we help? Are you okay? We'll send somebody to help you do closings because we know you guys are busy." There were a few people like that, but some others that I maybe would have thought like I had a better relationship with, their question was to whoever they could ask, how much are they going to sell it for? And I was mad. So in addition to grieving, like, okay, I think people need to understand that we're not going anywhere. That we're destabilized in the sense that a person very important to us is no longer here with us. But as far as the business, like, he passed away on a Saturday. The very next week we had like 68 closings and we didn't miss one or have to reschedule one at all. So we're here, we're going to get it done. And that was kind of the purpose of it. But thankfully, once I started talking, it hopefully didn't come across as angry. It was a little more heartfelt, and just letting people know like what a great guy he was and what we lost, and that we're committed to like honoring his legacy by staying. It's not going anywhere.
When you said you were bitter, I was very, very surprised because I did not get that at all. I now want to go back and watch it and see if I can catch any of that, but
You might.
I didn't catch it at all. Um, when the shark started to circle you, the there had to have been some sort of doubt, but the anger, but maybe not. I don't know. But was there any doubt that maybe they're circling because I can't do this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Um, and it wasn't necessarily me thinking I couldn't. It was me being angry that they were circling because they felt like I couldn't. Like, oh, he was a lawyer for he got licensed the same month I was born. Like I told him that was the best month of his life, is that those two things happened. So you look at someone who's like, when he passed away, gosh, that was 2021. So I'd been licensed 5 years. It's not that long. And especially not that long to have a firm that was doing the volume that we were during that COVID era time. So I can understand why people might think that, like, oh, he brought her in because her husband does the marketing, so he owes it to her. Or maybe this is his long-term play and he's going to try to train her up over the next 10, 15 years to take it over until his kids get out of law school. Like I could understand those things, but I'd also felt a little bit like I had demonstrated through my work and through my other efforts that I could do this, and that they should have a little bit more faith in him that he wouldn't pick someone that couldn't do it. He always told me that don't get a partner unless you need one, and you only need one if you don't have the money or you don't have the skills. He had the money and the skills, but he felt like I had some different things to bring to the table. He definitely didn't need the money. So I'm like, trust him a little bit that he chose wisely.
How did your clients react?
Um, Almost overwhelmingly supportive. There were a few people who were like, we like her, but we don't know what she can do. So it took me a little bit to win them over, but it was almost overwhelmingly supportive. At first they were like, okay, we want you to know we're not going anywhere just because he died. We're not going to just pull our business because he died. And now it's a little bit bittersweet to say this, but most of the people that come in now don't really know who he is. So we like try to honor his legacy, of course, but it's also a little bit satisfying to know that they're not just staying out of pity; they're staying because of the work that we do.
Yeah. Did you ever lose anybody because of it?
A couple, and it was like people that I didn't necessarily over the years get to know, because at the volume we were doing, it was kind of impossible for both of us to know everybody that the other was working with. And some of those people were kind of just like the old guard as well, they were also retiring. So it was a little bit of natural attrition, and then some that were just like, I don't know her. He was my guy. I know some other people that are, I know better, then I'll go work with them.
Got less than 5% left.
Hmm.
Did the support from the clients that stayed, did that surprise you?
Um, a little bit, yeah. I think I think back to the moment when I found out. Um, and we were actually on the way to go get dinner with him. So I'm like, like put my shoes on. We're going to go meet them for dinner. His wife calls and she says, I'm just letting you know that I found Ben unresponsive. And she paused. And I thought the next words were, we're on the way to the hospital. But the next words were, and he has passed away. So I just sit down in my closet. I yell for my husband, and he comes in thinking that I've like broken something. And I said, what are we going to do? Like I'm like, how do we do this without him? First of all, how completely unfair that this is real life. But what do we do? Like, I have no idea how we're going to keep up this volume, how I'm going to continue without my like North Star. Um, so, I say all of that to say, yes, I was a little bit surprised because I had no idea what would happen and where it would go.
Did you ever consider selling?
No.
Why not?
Um, Stubbornness, because I knew I could do it. So it was, if the option to buy out the estate share was not going to be one for me, I was going to start over. It was either I own that firm or I own another firm, but I was going to do it myself.
Interesting. If the sharks had not circled, so you don't have that element, do you think that you still would have wanted to buy the firm or buy out his share?
Hmm. Yeah.
Why is that?
Um, because I put so much into it, and it was always the plan that within, he was 63 when he passed away. By 67, he wanted to be done. Now, he had at one point he said 70, but he was like, okay, you're picking this up pretty quickly. Like, I just want to be able to be done and like putter around, come in when I want to, and then see my children through to getting out of law school. So the plan was always between us that it would be me. And I also felt a little bit of like, this is what we had talked about. I'm going to honor what we had agreed to, which was I'm going to run this place in a way that would make us both proud. So no, even if they hadn't been circling, I was going to see it through.
Now that you've owned the firm for 4 years, is that right?
Three and a half.
Three.
Well, we started in 2020, so I was part owner, and then sole owner 2021.
So, 3 years sole owner, his expectation to kind of what I would, have heard call being in the owner's box versus being in the C-suite. So he's just, he shows up whenever he wants, gets his kids through college. Do you think that that's realistic now?
Um, hmm. I'm struggling with that currently, so I don't know. I don't know. Um, currently the way our business is set up, I couldn't just putter around. Uh, but I think it's doable to get to a point where the owner of the firm doesn't have to be so ingrained in the day to day that there's more flexibility. So I think that's probably there's maybe a happy medium between the way the firm is currently operating and then the vision he saw for himself.
To me, it seems really difficult to separate whenever you have lawyers, and I'll just say this professionals in general, whether you're a doctor, an accountant, lawyer, it's really, really hard to take that professional and then out of the C-suite, we'll call it, and into that owner's box completely. Uh, And you may disagree with that, you may agree, I don't know, but like, do you think it's possible? And if not, though, if you're more on my side, where I think I don't know if it's impossible, but it's really, really difficult. Why is that?
Well, I think some of it has to do with our training. I think to do what we do, like any professional that has to have like extended schooling to do their job, there's an academic in them. There's like a desire to learn. There's a desire to like to be able to explain or understand the world. And I think at a certain point when you stop doing that, I think that's why a lot of professionals, like when they stop doing their thing, they get ill or, like their health takes a turn because they're not challenging, like they feel like they don't have their purpose or they don't have the thing that's challenging them anymore. So I think that probably has a little bit to do with it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think some of it's like how we're hardwired to try to understand the world through academics.
Sure. When when you took over, and we talked a little bit about, firing people and managing people, but during those initial weeks and months, what was it like with the employees? Did they rally, or was it obviously people were sad, but
Mhm.
was it more supportive, or was it, less supportive? What was that environment like?
Extremely supportive, a tiny bit fearful, but we all were because it was like uncharted territory. Um, they had confidence in me, but at the same time, like he was the money man. So like we had to make sure we kept revenue coming in. So they were just a little bit like uncertain as to what's the long term play here. In the short term, everybody was extremely supportive, worked their tails off. Like I look back and I'm kind of shocked at what we were able to accomplish and to be able to proudly say we didn't have to cancel or reschedule or like we didn't miss a beat. Um, and it's all because of them. I mean, there was no way that I would have been able to solely do all of those closings by myself if they weren't doing everything else. I mean, they just had it all covered and like couldn't be more thankful that they did that.
Were there any detractors? Anyone that left?
Not immediately.
Did they ultimately end up leaving because he was no longer here, or was it other reasons?
There was one person that left. He had been kind of protecting her for a long time. Good at those people that are extremely good at their jobs, but really not good with people. And she'd kind of run off some really good employees over the years. And when he wasn't there anymore, he kind of the buffer between us was gone. And I don't think I was a jerk about it, but I'd kind of laid out the expectations of if like you're really good at your job, but if you want to continue to work here, you're not running off. You're not running everybody off. Like this is we got to treat people with kindness and respect. And it wasn't immediate, but just a couple months later, she turned in her notice.
Well, it's probably for the best
It was, yeah.
for both of
I
you.
wish her the best, but it was for the best for the business.
Did you all have those deep conversations with all the employees about revenue and all that, where like, hey, I know that he's the money person, but we'll figure this out, or was it more we'll take direction from leadership, leadership will talk about it amongst themselves and then report back to us?
Well, at that time, I was the only leadership, so
Yeah.
that was the only place they could get their information. And while I didn't necessarily go into detail, like he was pretty wealthy. He had a lot of savings. You know, when you got two planes and two boats, people kind of get an idea of what the kind of money you have. So they knew that, like, okay, well, if we were to have a bad month, he can float it. I didn't have that track record, and nor did I want to have to pull from my personal savings to be able to float the business. But what I did say to them is like, okay, the numbers are really obvious that our market share is through the roof. We're doing 200 closings a month. Like that's kind of unheard of for a firm of our size. Money is not an issue. So if you're worried about will the firm be able to pay you, that is the last thing you need to have on your mind. What we need to be worried about is we need to make sure that we have enough attorneys to do the closings. And right now, one attorney can't do 200 closings by themselves. So that kind of helped calm people down about that, like knowing that we're not looking at layoffs, we're not looking at like pay cuts or anything like that. Like everyone's going to be fine making their money.
Why haven't you changed the name of the firm?
Um, well, lately I haven't been thinking about it. At first, it was for the sake of like stability and the optics in the community. He was kind of like a well-known attorney, philanthropist. Like a lot of people knew his name. So if I had changed the name immediately, I think there would have been some backlash. So at least for like a year and a half, 2 years, people were like, I'm really glad that you've kept the name. And now that we're getting to the point where we're like, okay, so you're a Weber. Who is your husband Thomas? Is your dad Thomas? Like that's what people are asking. And I'm realizing, okay, like the name still means a lot to a lot of people in the community, but it's not necessarily that that's why they're coming. But before he passed away, we'd gotten like we'd started using Law at the Lake for lots of things because further down the road we wanted to be able to rebrand to Law at the Lake, but we wanted to do it subtly. Like people already know us as Law at the Lake, so that at this point, if I were to just change it to Law at the Lake, like they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's you've been doing that for
Oh,
years."
interesting.
Yeah, so it wouldn't just be like a now suddenly what they were calling Thomas and Weber, now they have to call Law at the Lake. This it's all kind of been the same to them for 4 years.
Have you considered maybe creating Law at the Lake as a separate brand, and keep the current name
Mm.
running at the same time?
I've never thought about that. How would I? Tell me more.
It's something I just thought of, so I don't
Okay.
know, but I do wonder if you could build up, and it may not make any sense, but it's one of those things that we can kind of spitball here.
Mm.
If you had Law at the Lake, okay, you have the current firm name, and you kind of test out to see which one performs better
Mm-hmm.
name wise and everything.
Yeah.
It would essentially all kind of feed into the same place,
Yeah.
essentially. But I don't know. It was one of the things I was thinking, like maybe if you rebranded it, but then I was also thinking with the Google reviews and all
Yeah.
that, like you're not going to get those transferred over if you do it this way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just something I was just thinking about as we were
Yeah,
talking.
I like it because then it would kind of be like the hard data we would need to pull the trigger too.
Sure.
It's like it's inevitable. We know at some point we're just gonna transition to that. Another element of that is that there might be the goal is that Ben's kids come back and practice with me. I'd love for that. Like his daughter has just finished her first year of law school. His son's about to start law school. And I would be honored if they came back and worked with me. But I could see some confusion too with their last name being Thomas and it being Thomas and Weber, that it might be like I don't want to just go like Weber and Thomas. That would be kind of pointless to do that. Like just go Law at the Lake, but then we don't have any questions of like people thinking these brand new attorneys are partners.
It would be an interesting full circle moment if one of them in the future ended up becoming your law partner.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it would be I'm not so sentimental that I'm like, this is what has to happen. If it works out and they want to practice the type of law that we're going to do at the firm, like I'm not going to restructure the entire firm and just change what we're doing to make them fit. But like the deal I'd made with Ben is like when I retire, if they graduate law school, can you just give them a job? I'm not saying like, and if they're terrible, they don't have to. You can fire them, but can you just give them a shot? Like, well, yeah, of course. Like you're gonna still be here, and I'm not gonna like. Of course, we're gonna hire them, but yeah, like ultimately, if they were to come and this is what they want to do, and it makes sense, then it would be an honor.
It is really cool to me, especially these days, that you are still honoring these agreements that you have no legal
Mhm.
obligation to, right? That you're still honoring these things to him. And I just think that's so cool.
Um, I appreciate you saying that, but I mean, not to get like too insanely deep, but I grew up without my dad in my life, and Ben kind of he stepped in as like a mentor to the extreme. There were times he'd be like, "Just give me your dad's number. I just want to call him and tell him what he's missing." And for someone that grew up without their dad in the home and like doesn't have a relationship to hear words like that, it makes you believe in yourself. And so I owe a lot to him. I know a lot of what I've been able to do is because I've tried and worked at it, but he's given me so many opportunities. Like my husband and I named our kid after him. Like her middle name is his middle name. Like he's just a very important figure in our lives and um just a genuine good person that changed the trajectory of my life. So it's kind of the least I could do, I think.
Have you thought about what your life would have looked like if you had not joined that firm?
Mhm.
Like what, I mean, like what's that make you feel? Like that's it's a different world that you would have been
Yeah.
living in.
Yeah. I think I probably would have been fine. I probably would have found something that I like to do. Or my husband who has his own business, like he maybe if I wasn't making a ton of money, he might have convinced me to come work with him. I don't know. But to take a job, I took a huge pay cut to take the job when I left the corporate
Small
world.
firms can't pay a bunch of money.
No, no. And it was like I mean, when I say huge, huge pay cut, it was a big risk. People told me I was insane. Um, but if I hadn't done it, I never would have met Ben and I wouldn't have this firm that like gives me so much joy most of the time.
Okay. Um, what I'm talking about really is the element of the confidence that he instilled in you. Like
Yes,
so
yeah.
like I imagine that's had a significant effect on your ability to achieve success.
hmm
And so have you thought about what your life would have been like without that element?
Yes, and I think it would probably have the most to do with the risks that I'd be willing to take. I've always been ambitious and like hopefully not blind optimism, but with the optimism combined with that, I do think I would have found something meaningful or successful to do, but I would not have been nearly as risky. So to have somebody like build you up and tell you that you're good and worthy and you've got great ideas, it makes you take bigger swings. And I don't think I would have done that without having somebody like him in my corner to build me up to do it.
So it's very, very evident that Ben meant a lot to you. And I it's such a rare thing because with partnerships, there's a lot of people that are close with their partners, but there's a lot that they're just a person,
Mhm.
like they become a person to them,
Yeah.
just a person. That's it. Almost like an acquaintance, just a step above. It's just interesting to me for me to
Mhm.
see because we'll have guild members come and talk about their partner, and it's just it's an interesting thing because
Almost like they're a stranger.
yeah, exactly. Like they don't know anything about the person.
Mhm.
It's really interesting. But Ben wasn't that to you.
No.
And here's what I've told myself, and I know that Ben isn't a significant part of your story, but I'm not going to ask you about Ben again unless you bring Ben up on any podcast again, because it Ben is a part of your story. Ben is not part of your future, though.
Mhm.
But I do want to ask you this: have you ever thought about what you would say to Ben if he were standing here today?
Um, Not necessarily. I haven't really given thought to like the words that I would say. Um, but I would hope that his feeling would be that he's proud of what we've done and that he thinks we're going in a direction, not necessarily did we always see eye to eye on the right way to go about things, but that He would feel that we've done it with integrity, that he'd be proud of how we're serving the clients, how we're treating each other. Um, so that's what I hope he would see. It's one of those weird things that like in the last couple years, I've always had like vivid dreams or whatever, but anytime I've needed to really hash something out, I have a dream where I'm talking to him about the situation and he's like responding to me just like we would do when we were in the office. So, I think about that sometimes of like how, like I'm not really like a woo woo person, but it's just a really interesting coincidence. Like when I got pregnant, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I like at some point I'm gonna have to go have this baby, and then he's talking, like we're having have a dream where he's just sitting in the office, like, well, this is what all we have to do is this, and you're gonna be a great mom, and So I've thought about like how conversations would go, but if he were to be right here right now, I don't know what I'd say other than just I hope we're doing you proud.
So it's interesting. So it's helped guide your conversation, your decision making in a way.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Oh, that's I like that.
Less so now, but especially at the beginning, because there was so much of like I felt like I had a lot to prove then, specifically to everybody that thought I couldn't do it without him. I don't feel that way as much anymore. Like I feel like I stand on my own 2 feet, and like the decisions that are being made are my own, and I can stand behind them, and I'm proud of them. But at first, it was very much like, what would he do?
Do you still have a chip on your shoulder from those early days?
Yes.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Depends on the day.
Tell me more.
I think it can be a good thing because I'm used to like being doubted and I am not afraid to try to prove people wrong. But it can be a bad thing when like it's okay. I can just relax a little bit. Like I do not always have to prove something to everybody. Like just kind of be steady and make decisions for the long term. There's nobody that we're trying to show that you can actually do this, that you're smart enough. Like we're past that. At least I hope we're past that.
Where does that the thought of being doubted come from? Other than the early days,
Yeah.
are there other moments?
Well, I think I do have to go back just a little bit. I graduated college early. I was not super early, but I was 20 when I graduated. So I started working as a drug rep like before I turned 21. Like we're going to the company functions and I can't have a drink with everybody. And it made people look at me a lot differently, like what is up here? So I'm used to being like, and I've always been short and, like everything has been, like just the little, at the time, scrawny kid or the young one or, so it's a little bit of that, and it's just something I haven't been able to shake yet.
It's why the runts are always the strongest
Yeah,
of the litter.
yeah.
So it's good to be a run. Tell me about coffee and headshots.
Yeah, that's been a fun event. We've done it a couple times now, and I've got my coffee sitting next to me. Not usually a Starbucks person, but that was what was convenient. Like we really like supporting our local coffee shops, and we've gotten to know a lot of the owners really well over the years. And so a lot of our referral business comes from real estate agents, and they all have headshots from 25 years ago, and they don't look like that anymore. So we found a good way to like, all right, we're going to give the community free coffee. If they need an updated headshot, come on. And it just gives us a chance to like to talk to people that we normally don't have the time to talk to.
It's such a cool idea. Do you limit what coffee they can get? Because some coffees are like $6, $8.
Well, the no, we've had a couple people that have come, like if they come with a truck, then, they'll do a limited menu. But others it's just been wide open, but it's only a couple hours. So we just budget for it. Like whatever they want, they get, and that's fine. Because the value of us getting to talk to them and then them walking away with something that's meaningful and useful to them, yeah, well, they can have as much coffee as they want.
People love coffee. It's an interesting thing because we'll like, send donuts to the school, things like
Mhm.
that for the teachers. But the thing that they always talk about is we had a coffee truck show up and
That's
get
awesome.
like, and it was funny because it was in the middle of the day, and we were trying to work out all these logistics with them, and It's really simple. They just showed up right after drop off, and
Hmm.
they figure out this schedule for them to all come out at certain times.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like they tell me, like that's the number one thing
Hmm.
that they
Well,
always
I
love
think
the
it
most.
also shows like the effort that you went to.
Yeah,
There's something, the logistics mean a lot to them because it
totally.
wasn't like, yeah, it's cool to send treats, but you sent a business to them, and that stands out, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you do get there's that local element too that you do get to support them by. I think that's cool too, where you're kind of tying all those things in
Hmm.
together, and it's an incredible marketing tool.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. I may try to steal this, but I don't
Do
have.
it.
I'll have to hire a photographer to do it.
Well, one time we did. We have a guy that used to work for my husband. He was more photography than videography. So we hired him to come do the headshots once. So we don't always do it ourselves.
It's interesting. So Amy has figured out how to do headshots with photos that our employees have sent to us inside of
Oh,
Canva.
cool.
I don't know how she does it. I'm gonna have her teach me, and
Yeah.
we're gonna do it as like one of the Saturday episodes. But it's really cool. It was just it's just something different from outside the box, but it's
Yeah.
related somewhat. But that's kind of cool what she's doing.
I like that.
All right, I'm gonna ask you kind of a silly question.
Okay.
Is Bride's Cake Bluebell ice cream still your favorite?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah, how much research did you do?
just a little bit.
That's a hell of a lot.
So yeah, so can you find it?
Yes. Um, there was like a time period where I couldn't find it for at least a year. But now it's back in stock. They even have like the miniature sizes. It is my favorite, but nobody else in my family likes it. So like if I can only get the big ones, I just have to commit that like I've got to make sure I finish this in a timely manner. But it's so good. Have you ever had it?
No, I'm vegan now, so I can't have
Oh
it.
yeah, okay.
But it sounds good.
Yeah, I mean it's like the like almond amaretto cake pieces. It's stupid good. I love anything that tastes like wedding cake though.
Wedding cake's good. It's
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
You guys want to get married again?
let's do it. Absolutely. Um, at our wedding, actually didn't get my food. It was actually I was saying thank you to everyone, and like
Uh-huh.
they took I didn't even get to eat my food.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy. Anyways, the your annual checkup, the legal version. Are you still doing that? Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, what is that?
So at the time, we have a more focused version of it now because at the time when we started doing that, have you ever seen what's the guy's name that interviews all the hip hop artists? I'll send you a link. You're really putting me in mind of him because he finds like the details that like the artists are like, I don't. How do you know that? Like, I don't know how you know that. So the level of detail you went to is really admirable here. But at the time we started doing that, we had multiple practice areas. So we were asking like, have you gone through a separation or divorce recently? When's the last time you've looked at your estate documents? Has anybody in your family had an injury? We're asking them comprehensive stuff, but now that we're focused more on real estate and like about to pick up we've been doing estate planning, just not advertising it. We focus on those things. Okay, so like, all right, have you refinanced your property recently? Do you have a trust that doesn't own your property? Those are the types of things we're asking.
So I mean, I don't know when you started it, but I know that you were doing this back in 2017 at least. And I wonder, like, is this something, an idea that you had brought to the firm, or is it
Hmm.
okay? Because that's a really cool. You've been doing it for a really long
Yeah.
time. I mean, that's really incredible. I found
That
that.
was an easy one to bring up because it was just a PDF. Like some of the other ideas I'd had, they were like, I don't know, is that going to cost money? I'm like, I've already made the PDF. It took me 15 minutes on a Saturday night. Like, you're not paying me for that time. So that was kind of one of my easier ways to try to start introducing things.
It really is I think it's a really cool idea. It's something that many people could do. It might be a little bit more applicable to in to general practice firms where you
Hmm.
could do all those different things. But you could do on easily with estate planning. There's a lot of things you could
Hmm.
do. It's also, I guess any firm could do it. What you could do is do this annual checkup with all your. You could offer it to people on social media, but
Hmm.
also past clients. I could do like injury clients, and who knows, it might be a way for you can give it to a referral partner. In
Hmm.
case a referral partner, I mean, maybe they got another card. Oh yeah, you were the firm that hopefully they do
Yeah.
remember us, but maybe they not everybody's going to remember you. So I do think it's an interesting way to kind of bring them back into the fold. It's a
Yeah.
cool idea. I saw that, I was like, oh, that's really neat. I
It's
don't,
like we've got our email list. We might as well use it for something.
and it's also something that you could market to where like people talk about the importance of like a checkup with your doctor,
Hmm.
where you make them realize the importance of having like checkup on legal stuff too.
Hmm.
So I think that part's pretty important. The last thing I do want to talk to you about is the future of your industry and where you see your firm fitting in it.
Hmm.
So have you thought about that? What's that look like?
Yes. So North Carolina, I don't want to assume what you're talking about, but real estate closings are going more digital.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah, I thought that maybe was where you're going. So North Carolina had passed. We're the first state to do an electronic closing, which a lot of people don't know. But the thing that North Carolina's been doing is that the notary still has to be physically present with the signer. So you're doing everything on a computer, but the notary still is sitting next to you. So it's like we almost went, we almost got it, but didn't quite go far enough. So North Carolina finally got on board with e-notary. The rulemaking was supposed to take effect July 1st, 2023, and then it got pushed to July 1st, 2024. And here we are, rulemaking still not done. But in anticipation of that, all of our team e-notary certified. Like I'm sure it's like this in a lot of other states where attorneys don't have to take the notary course. Um, same here, except you do have to take the e-notary course. We knocked all of that out as soon as we knew it was coming. And we've got all of the software necessary to be able to do e-closings right now. We're just waiting on North Carolina to say go for it. Um, so and I've mentioned this before, like I don't want to just sit back and let things happen to us. I want to be ready for it, and like I don't want any lag time. So we're ready for it from that aspect. But one thing that I think we haven't quite figured out yet is the changes with the NAR settlement. It's been like all over the news with you know just the way that real estate agents get paid going forward. And I think what it's going to lead to is a lot more unrepresented buyers and sellers, which puts a lot more work on the closing attorney. So I think that we have to come up with a way of, all right, how do we provide the services that these people need without becoming de facto real estate agents, but also making money for it? Because it's going to add, 45, 50 hours of work to a real estate closing for an unrepresented person compared to a lot less than that for a represented person. So we haven't quite figured that out. Like there's some other law firms I've seen where they're offering like concierge services for buyers and sellers. But figuring out that line of like how far do you go? Like we're not going to be setting up your inspections for you, but you're going to need help getting under contract. You're going to need help negotiating repairs, etc. And how much of that do we really want to be involved in?
Is there a concern that maybe the real estate companies, the national real estate companies, would just hire in-house attorneys, and then they would that kind of like that concierge service where they would just kind of fold it all into that, and then you've got a group of attorneys sitting in, I don't know,
Mhm.
Utah or Arizona or Michigan, wherever, and they've just got this massive, you know, group of people that are just doing all these closings around the country.
Maybe. I mean, it's definitely possible, especially in the estates where title companies can do the closings, because you'll have a title company owned by the real estate company, and then the real estate company also owns the mortgage broker, and so on and so forth. We have a little more separation here, and the legislature hasn't shown any indication that they want to change that anytime soon. But I think probably the bigger issue is that um, like agents aren't going to they don't want to work for free, and the situation right now is kind of pushing them into situations where they might have to, or they're just not getting as many clients as they currently are, and we're not in the best market anyway. So I think if they what's probably going to happen with that is that you go to more of a flat rate piecemeal type of representation where like a buyer's agent is like, okay, you can pay me $850 to see this many houses, and then if we get under contract it goes up to X amount, or if you want me to do this, like to at least give buyers a better idea of what they will actually be spending, or sellers as well, but they're just not going to get as much as they did before the settlement.
Where are the opportunities for the firm in it?
I think probably in that stepping into maybe that concierge, hold your hand through the transaction. All right, you've got your inspection report back. What do you do now? Does the seller have to fix everything? If they don't, what can you do? How much money do you ask for? Helping with negotiation for those parts of the transaction where we never would have been involved before. Providing referrals, or I mean, I guess we could be the ones setting up their appointments, but it would be a non-attorney, customer service support type role, doing all of those things. But I mean, it's tough because it wouldn't be cheap.
What does success look like for you over the next 3 years?
Um, so we're opening our third office right now. So success for us would be flagship location in Mooresville, averaging 125 closing a month, 125 closings a month, and then each of our satellite offices 50 closings a month each. And that would be success for us. An attorney running each of those satellite offices, two of us in Mooresville.
Thanks, Tiff.
Thanks.